Shawarma? Yes, yes.
Church of the Holy Sepulchre. The Church of the Holy Sepulchre is a church in the Christian quarter of the Old City, Jerusalem. According to traditions dating back to the 4th century, it contains the two holiest sites in Christianity, the site where Jesus was crucified, at a place known as Calvary or Golgotha, and Jesus' empty tomb, where he is believed by Christians to have been buried and resurrected. Each time the church was rebuilt, some of the antiquities from the preceding structure were used in the newer renovation. The tomb itself is enclosed by a 19th century shrine called the Edicule. The status quo, an understanding between religious communities dating to 1757, applies to the site. Within the church proper are the last 4 stations of the cross of the Via Dolorosa, representing the final episodes of the Passion of Jesus. The church has been a major Christian pilgrimage destination since its creation in the 4th century as the traditional site of the resurrection of Christ, thus its original Greek name, Church of the Anastasis. Control of the church itself is shared, a simultaneum, among several Christian denominations and secular entities in complicated arrangements essentially unchanged for over 160 years, and some for much longer. The main denominations sharing property over parts of the church are the Roman Catholic, Greek Orthodox, and Armenian Apostolic, and to a lesser degree the Coptic, Syriac, and Ethiopian Orthodox churches. History. Following the siege of Jerusalem in AD 70 during the First Jewish-Roman War, Jerusalem had been reduced to ruins. In AD 130, the Roman Emperor Hadrian began the building of a Roman colony, the new city of Aelia Capitolina, on the site. Circa AD 135, he ordered that a cave containing a rock-cut tomb be filled in to create a flat foundation for a temple dedicated to Jupiter or Venus. The temple remained until the early 4th century. Construction, 4th century. After allegedly seeing a vision of a cross in the sky in 312, Constantine the Great began to favor Christianity, signed the Edict of Milan legalizing the religion, and sent his mother, Helena, to Jerusalem to look for Christ's tomb. With the help of Bishop of Caesarea Eusebius and Bishop of Jerusalem Macarius, 3 crosses were found near a tomb. One which allegedly cured people of death was presumed to be the true cross Jesus was crucified on, leading the Romans to believe that they had found Calvary. Constantine ordered in about 326 that the temple to Jupiter/Venus be replaced by a church. After the temple was torn down and its ruins removed, the soil was removed from the cave, revealing a rock-cut tomb that Helena and Macarius identified as the burial site of Jesus. A shrine was built, enclosing the rock tomb walls within its own. In 327, Constantine and Helena separately commissioned the Church of the Nativity in Bethlehem to commemorate the birth of Jesus. The Church of the Holy Sepulchre, planned by the architect Zenobius, was built as separate constructs over the 2 holy sites, a rotunda called the Anastasis, Resurrection, where Helena and Macarius believed Jesus to have been buried, and across a courtyard to the east, the Great Basilica, an enclosed colonnaded atrium. The triportico, sometimes called the Martyrium, with the traditional site of Calvary in one corner. The church was consecrated on 13th of September 335. The Church of the Holy Sepulchre site has been recognized since early in the 4th century as the place where Jesus was crucified, buried, and rose from the dead. Damage and destruction: 614 to 1009. This building was destroyed by a fire in May of AD 614 when the Sassanid Empire, under Khosrau II, invaded Jerusalem and captured the True Cross. In 630, the Emperor Heraclius rebuilt the church after recapturing the city. After Jerusalem came under Islamic rule, it remained a Christian church, with the early Muslim rulers protecting the city's Christian sites, prohibiting their destruction or use as living quarters. A story reports that the Caliph Umar ibn al-Khattab visited the church and stopped to pray on the balcony, but at the time of prayer, turned away from the church and prayed outside. He feared that future generations would misinterpret this gesture, taking it as a pretext to turn the church into a mosque. Eutychius of Alexandria adds that Umar wrote a decree saying that Muslims would not inhabit this location. The building suffered severe damage from an earthquake in 746. Early in the 9th century, another earthquake damaged the dome of the Anastasis. The damage was repaired in 810 by Patriarch Thomas I. In 841, the church suffered a fire. In 935, the Christians prevented the construction of a Muslim mosque adjacent to the church. In 938, a new fire damaged the inside of the basilica and came close to the rotunda. In 966, due to a defeat of Muslim armies in the region of Syria, a riot broke out, which was followed by reprisals. The basilica was burned again. The doors and roof were burnt, and Patriarch John VII was murdered. On October 18, 1009, Fatimid Caliph al-Hakim bi-Amr Allah ordered the complete destruction of the church as part of a more general campaign against Christian places of worship in Palestine and Egypt. The damage was extensive, with few parts of the early church remaining, and the roof of the rock-cut tomb damaged. The original shrine was destroyed. Some partial repairs followed. Christian Europe reacted with shock and expulsions of Jews, serving as an impetus to later crusades. Reconstruction, 11th century. In wide-ranging negotiations between the Fatimids and the Byzantine Empire in 1027-28, an agreement was reached whereby the new Caliph Ali az-Zahir, al-Hakim's son, agreed to allow the rebuilding and redecoration of the church. The rebuilding was finally completed during the tenures of Emperor Constantine IX Monomachos and Patriarch Nicephorus of Constantinople in 1048. As a concession, the mosque in Constantinople was reopened and the khutbah sermons were to be pronounced in az-Zahir's name. Muslim sources say a byproduct of the agreement was the renunciation of Islam by many Christians who had been forced to convert under al-Hakim's persecutions. In addition, the Byzantines, while releasing 5,000 Muslim prisoners, made demands for the restoration of other churches destroyed by al-Hakim and the re-establishment of a patriarch in Jerusalem. Contemporary sources credit the emperor with spending vast sums in an effort to restore the Church of the Holy Sepulchre after this agreement was made. Still, a total replacement was far beyond available resources. The new construction was concentrated on the rotunda and its surrounding buildings. The Great Basilica remained in ruins. The rebuilt church site consisted of a court open to the sky with 5 small chapels attached to it. The chapels were east of the Court of Resurrection. When reconstructed, the location of the tomb was under open sky, where the western wall of the Great Basilica had been. They commemorated scenes from the Passion, such as the location of the prison of Christ and his flagellation, and presumably were so placed because of the difficulties of free movement among shrines in the city streets. The dedication of these chapels indicates the importance of the pilgrims' devotion to the suffering of Christ. They have been described as a sort of Via Dolorosa in miniature. Since little or no rebuilding took place on the site of the Great Basilica, Western pilgrims to Jerusalem during the 11th century found much of the sacred site in ruins. Control of Jerusalem, and thereby the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, continued to change hands several times between the Fatimids and the Seljuk Turks, loyal to the Abbasid Caliph in Baghdad, until the Crusaders' arrival in 1099. Crusader period, 1099 to 1244. Many historians maintain that the main concern of Pope Urban II, when calling for the First Crusade, was the threat to Constantinople from the Turkish invasion of Asia Minor in response to the appeal of Byzantine Emperor Alexios I Komnenos. Historians agree that the fate of Jerusalem and thereby the Church of the Holy Sepulchre was also of concern, if not the immediate goal of papal policy in 1095. The idea of taking Jerusalem gained more focus as the Crusade was underway. The rebuilt church site was taken from the Fatimids, who had recently taken it from the Abbasids, by the Knights of the First Crusade on July 15, 1099. The First Crusade was envisioned as an armed pilgrimage, and no crusader could consider his journey complete unless he had prayed as a pilgrim at the Holy Sepulchre. The classical theory is that Crusader leader Godfrey of Bouillon, who became the first Latin ruler of Jerusalem, decided not to use the title king during his lifetime and declared himself Advocatus Sancti Sepulchri, protector or defender of the Holy Sepulchre. By the Crusader period, a cistern under the former basilica was rumored to have been where Helena had found the true cross and began to be venerated as such. The cistern later became the chapel of the Invention of the Cross, but there is no evidence of the site's identification before the 11th century. And modern archaeological investigation has now dated the cistern to 11th century repairs by monomachos. According to the German priest and pilgrim Ludolf von Sudheim, the keys of the chapel of the Holy Sepulchre were in hands of the ancient Georgians, and the food, alms, candles and oil for lamps were given to them by the pilgrims at the south door of the church. 11th and 12th century Crusader kings, Godfrey, Baldwin I, Baldwin II, Fulk, Baldwin III, Amalric, Baldwin IV and Baldwin V, the first 8 kings of Jerusalem, were buried in the south transept and inside the chapel of Adam. The royal tombs were destroyed by the Greeks in 1809 to 1810. William of Tyre, chronicler of the Crusader Kingdom of Jerusalem, reports on the renovation of the church in the mid-12th century. The Crusaders investigated the eastern ruins on the site, occasionally excavating through the rubble, and while attempting to reach the cistern, they discovered part of the original ground level of Hadrian's temple enclosure. They transformed this space into a chapel dedicated to Helena, widening their original excavation tunnel into a proper staircase. The Crusaders began to refurnish the church in Romanesque style and added a bell tower. These renovations unified the small chapels on the site and were completed during the reign of Queen Melisande in 1149, placing all the holy places under one roof for the first time. The church became the seat of the first Latin patriarchs and the site of the kingdom's scriptorium. It was lost to Saladin, along with the rest of the city, in 1187, although the treaty established after the Third Crusade allowed Christian pilgrims to visit the site. Emperor Frederick II, 1220-50, regained the city and the church by treaty in the 13th century while under a ban of excommunication, with the curious consequence that the holiest church in Christianity was laid under interdict. The church seems to have been largely in the hands of Greek Orthodox Patriarch Athanasius II of Jerusalem, 1231-47, during the Latin control of Jerusalem. Both city and church were captured by the Cramians in 1244. Ottoman period. There was certainly a recognizable Nestorian Church of the East presence at the Holy Sepulchre from the years 1348 through 1575, as contemporary Franciscan accounts indicate. The Franciscan friars renovated the church in 1555, as it had been neglected despite increased numbers of pilgrims. The Franciscans rebuilt the edicule, extending the structure to create an antechamber. A marble shrine commissioned by Friar Boniface of Ragusa was placed to envelop the remains of Christ's tomb, probably to prevent pilgrims from touching the original rock or taking small pieces as souvenirs. A marble slab was placed over the limestone burial bed where Jesus' body is believed to have lain. After the renovation of 1555, control of the church oscillated between the Franciscans and the Orthodox, depending on which community could obtain a favorable firman from the Sublime Porte at a particular time, often through outright bribery. Violent clashes were not uncommon. There was no agreement about this question, although it was discussed at the negotiations to the Treaty of Karlowitz in 1699. During the Holy Week of 1757, Orthodox Christians reportedly took over some of the Franciscan-controlled church. This may have been the cause of the Sultan's firman decree, later developed into the status quo. A fire severely damaged the structure again in 1808, causing the dome of the rotunda to collapse and smashing the edicule's exterior decoration. The rotunda and the edicule's exterior were rebuilt in 1809-10 by architect Nicolaus Ch. Komnenos of Mytilene in the contemporary Ottoman Baroque style. Citation needed: the interior of the antechamber, now known as the Chapel of the Angel J, was partly rebuilt to a square ground plan in place of the previously semicircular western end. Another decree in 1853 from the Sultan solidified the existing territorial division among the communities and solidified the status quo for arrangements to remain in their present state, requiring consensus to make even minor changes. The dome was restored by Catholics, Greeks and Turks in 1868, being made of iron ever since. British Mandate period. By the time of the British Mandate for Palestine following the end of World War I, the cladding of red marble applied to the edicule by Komnenos had deteriorated badly and was detaching from the underlying structure. From 1947 until restoration work in 2016-17, it was held in place with an exterior scaffolding of iron girders installed by the British authorities. Jordanian and Israeli periods. In 1948, Jerusalem was divided between Israel and Jordan, and the Old City with the church were made part of Jordan. In 1967, Israeli forces captured East Jerusalem in the Six-Day War, and that area has remained under Israeli control ever since. Under Israeli rule, legal arrangements relating to the churches of East Jerusalem were maintained in coordination with the Jordanian government. The dome of the Church of the Holy Sepulchre was restored again in 1994-97 as part of extensive modern renovations that have been ongoing since 1959. During the 1970-78 restoration works and excavations inside the building and under the nearby Maristan Bazaar, it was found that the area was originally a quarry from which white-maled limestone was struck. Chapel of St. Barton. East of the Chapel of St. Helena, the excavators discovered a void containing a 2nd century drawing of a Roman pilgrim ship, 2 low walls supporting the platform of Hadrian's 2nd century temple, and a higher 4th century wall built to support Constantine's basilica. After the excavations of the early 1970s, the Armenian authorities converted this archaeological space into the Chapel of St. Barton and created an artificial walkway over the quarry on the north of the chapel so that the new chapel could be accessed by permission from the Chapel of St. Helena. Edicule restoration. After 7 decades of being held together by steel girders, the Israel Antiquities Authority declared the visibly deteriorating edicule structure unsafe. A restoration of the edicule was agreed upon and executed from May 2016 to March 2017. Much of the $4 million project was funded by the World Monuments Fund, as well as $1.3 million from Micah Erdogan and a significant sum from King Abdullah II of Jordan. The existence of the original limestone cave walls within the edicule was confirmed, and a window was created to view this from the inside. The presence of moisture led to the discovery of an underground shaft resembling an escape tunnel carved into the bedrock, seeming to lead from the tomb. For the first time since at least 1555, on October 26, 2016, marble cladding that protects the supposed burial bed of Jesus was removed. Members of the National Technical University of Athens were present. Initially, only a layer of debris was visible. This was cleared in the next day, and a partially broken marble slab with a Crusader-style cross carved was revealed. By the night of 28th of October, the original limestone burial bed was shown to be intact. The tomb was resealed shortly thereafter. Mortar from just above the burial bed was later dated to the mid-4th century. 2020 pandemic periods. On March 25, 2020, Israeli health officials ordered the site closed to the public due to the COVID-19 pandemic. According to the keeper of the keys, it was the first such closure since 1349, during the Black Death. Clerics continued regular prayers inside the building, and it reopened to visitors 2 months later, on 24th of May. 2022 renovations. During church renovations in 2022, a stone slab covered in modern graffiti was moved from a wall, revealing Cosmatesque-style decoration on one face. According to an archaeologist, the decoration was once inlaid with pieces of glass and fine marble. It indicates that the relic was the front of the church's high altar from the Crusader era, c. 1149, which was later used by the Greek Orthodox until being damaged in the 1808 fire. The keeper of the keys. After the Muslim conquest of Jerusalem in 637, the Archbishop of Jerusalem, Sophronius, invited the Caliph Omar, also Umar, ibn al-Khattab, 579–644, to pray at the church. Omar refused to do so, fearing that future Muslim generations would claim the church as their own and turn it into a mosque. Omar instead prayed a few yards away from the church where the Mosque of Omar was later built. Omar signed the Covenant of Omar guaranteeing protection for the Christians to live and worship freely in exchange for their surrender. The key to the church was entrusted to a Muslim family, the Nusaybas, to avoid a conflict among the competing Christian denominations. If the key would be in the hands of the Greek Orthodox, then that would signify they are the owners of the church. If it is the hands of the Catholics, then it would be a Catholic church, the same with the Armenians, Orthodox. Waheye Nusaybeh, the current member of the family responsible for opening the church, told Catholic News Service. So Muslims are neutral people to open and close the door. In 1187, Saladin took the church from the Crusaders and entrusted the Jawda al-Gaudiya family with its key. The documentation for this decision dates only to the 16th century when rulers of the Ottoman Empire issued firmans, royal decrees, giving the family custodianship of the key. The Jawda family holds the key and hands it to a member of the Nusaybeh family who is responsible for opening the door to the church. Adib Jawda is the current holder of the keys. One is 850 years old but broke after centuries of use. The one used today has been used for the last 500 years. The key is 12 inches long, made of cast iron with a triangular metal handle and a square end. Early each morning, Nusaybeh takes the key from Jawda and climbs a small wooden ladder to unlock the top lock. Then he steps off the ladder to unlock the lower lock and opens the door. In the evening, he closes the door the same way. The Christian denominations share responsibility for the ladder used to reach the window in front of the door's padlock. Nusaybeh pounds the heavy door knocker on the doors, transferring the figurative ownership of the ladder among the Armenian Orthodox, Greek Orthodox, or the Catholics. During Holy Week, Nusaybeh opens the door at 4 a.m. when all three denominations have a holy day. Representatives of the Greek, Armenian, and Catholic churches unbolt the door from inside, then pass the ladder outside the trapdoor window to Nusaybeh. A bell inside is rung to announce the opening, and the three representatives open the inside lock and go outside to bring the ladder back inside. The church has only been closed on 4 occasions. The first was in 1349 during the Black Plague, the second time was in 1998 due to a disturbance caused by a visitor. In February 2018, the church was closed in protest due to a systematic campaign against the churches and the Christian community in the Holy Land. The church was shut again on March 25, 2020, as were other religious sites, due to the coronavirus outbreak in Israel.
Попадая на череп Адама, кровь Христа смывает первородный Адам в грех, от которого грехи все ушли. Таким образом, Иисус кровью своей смывает Адама. У вас есть традиционно распятие православия.
Please don't forget to like, share this video and subscribe to our channel. Thank you.
And we would love to hear your comments too.